Yo everybody, what's going on? This is Keegan from Kman Reviews. If you enjoyed this review, make sure you hit that like and the subscribe button, and if you have any opinions at all that you would like to share, make sure to leave them down in the comment section. Juice WRLD, Goodbye and Good Riddance. Juice WRLD, American rapper, singer, one of the most beloved artists in the late 2010s. A prolific figure in the SoundCloud emo trap era, his combination of melody and melancholia in his music helped him to gain a pretty large fan following with his short time in the spotlight. And I myself was included in that crowd, although I came in a little bit later than most. I first invested myself in Juice WRLD with the World on Drugs collaborative mixtape he did with Future, but didn't really become a fan until his sophomore release of Death Race for Love, and I've been tracking his posthumous releases ever since. However, I never really scouted anything before World on Drugs, so when I got a request via a friend to tackle any Juice WRLD project, I figured why not go back and check off the last box in Juice WRLD's discography, with that being the debut album Goodbye and Good Riddance, released in May of 2018. Now before I jump in, I want to say that I usually would be reviewing deluxe versions with extra tracks, but since the most recent deluxe, or anniversary edition as it's called, was released after his death, I'm going to omit it from this rule since I don't really like covering posthumous releases or re-releases, and besides there's not much on there anyway. There's a remix of Lucid Dreams with Lil Uzi Vert, which is pretty good, but I still prefer the original, and also 734, which is an amazingly passionate song, deserves so much love. So aside from that, this is a review of the 16-track July 2018 reissue with Wasted, as it's the main version I have on Apple Music. Anyway, enough stalling, let's just dive right in. What are my thoughts on Goodbye and Good Riddance? Let's find out as I review it track by track. We will start with the singles, with there being 3 of them. The first being All Girls Are the Same, which is quite the gloomy track on an instrumental level. I really like the little chiming synth melody that helps to paint the hopeless light this song gleams in, with the bass pulsations and typical skittering hi-hats, but it's really Juice's knack for a good hook and infectious tune that really sell his music in my opinion, and both are delivered here very competently. But my biggest gripe with this track in particular is he's mixed very quietly in terms of his vocals, and that kind of squanders the impact this song could have had otherwise. Lyrically, the message is pretty hyperbolic, something that Juice has talked about, to which he stated he was going through a very tough relationship at the time, and sometimes a broken heart at a younger age can jump to those severe conclusions. It's a pretty decent song, but I do personally wish it was mixed better. The second single and one of Juice's signature songs, Lucid Dreams, and I completely understand why that's the case because I think the song is really damn good. For one, it's mixed properly, Juice's vocals are front and center, and him singing that trademark chorus, it's kind of a hit that I don't think will ever subside for me. The instrumental is pretty breezy and airy, while the main melody is overshadowed predominantly by that dense bass. The sweetness occasionally peeks through on these breakdowns and serves as gentle, appealing interludes inside of the song. The structure is also much more scant than I initially remembered, only 2 choruses and 1 verse, but that verse is varied, lengthy, and engaging enough to make the track feel more substantial. Apparently Juice has expressed disdain for the song and called it annoying, which I honestly cannot understand at all. I think the track is one of the best examples of what the emo trap craze was like, and I still enjoy this one quite a lot. And the third and final single, Lean With Me, opens up with a gentle timbre of an electric guitar section that hibernates in the background throughout most of the tune, but provides a soothing melody behind the oscillating bass and skittering trap drum. Juice's vocals stay on the more monotone edge of his range for the majority of the song, exuding a nonchalance but also an ominous apathy as he sings these lyrics about doing drugs and alcohol and the consequences that follow such a lifestyle. Mostly solid singles run here, but let's see how the rest of the album compares. Now for the rest of the track. Opener Intro is a 1 minute and 14-second introduction sampling the instrumental of the Billie Eilish and Khalid song Lovely, presenting Juice's ex-girlfriend passionately berating him over a telephone call, telling him to stop calling her or else she will block his number. It's a fitting thematic transition into All Girls Are the Same, so I'd say there's at least some merit in having it here. Wasted, featuring Lil Uzi Vert, in my opinion is not as good a collaboration as the Lucid Dreams remix was, but this one is by no means bad. Like most of these beats, it has that bright yet haunting synth melody behind the bass and hi-hat. Not the most ear-grabbing beat on this album, but what really works here are the vocals. Juice's flow for his section is smooth, it's sticky, it's well done, and while I don't think the chorus suits him the best, it has that right amount of repetition that perfectly complements Uzi's style, and he kills his part accordingly with a fiery verse. I don't think we needed Juice's third verse though, the song did not need to be that long, but as it stands, it's a pretty solid track. I'm Still features a vibey acoustic guitar and cloudy wavy synths and the traditional hi-hat, with a much more piercing bass than any of the tracks before. absolutely adore the chorus on this track, and once again I have to commend Juice's ability to craft a catchy vocal melody with some beautiful heartfelt singing. Plus, I don't think I've heard this specific melody ever before on a track like this, which is also deserving of some respect, I feel. Lyrically, the song tackles more of his struggles with drug addiction, depression, and heartbreak. I love this song. Betrayal (skit) features the same voice from the intro track, where this time instead of stabbing him with pure fire over a call, this time she seems to be at a party in an attempt to let herself go when he calls her, and she shows no real care in the breakup and outright admits to having another partner during this time. I mean, it is just another skit. Candles is probably one of the hardest outright bangers on this album. The staccato synths are severely obstructed, so what ends up coming through are the distorted bass and rapid-fire ticking of the hi-hat, and in the end it does make it feel like one of the more generic instrumentals on the album, but yet again, the creme de la creme here are the vocals, as Juice sings with a very pleasing melody to help balance out the sheer aggressiveness of the beat. Lyrically, it continues the trend of the album and how he resorts to drugs to cope with his heartbreak and emotional state. Not a track I'm too eager to return to, but I do think it's well done. Scared to Love on the complete opposite end is one of the most bouncy tracks on the whole album. Instead of blaring, the bass has a buoyancy to it while the hi-hat takes a backseat, letting that bass just thrive over the song. It's such an easy track to just kind of sway to. Juice's vocals work well over this beat. I love the chorus melody. He's got a gripping, charismatic delivery, and not even being 3 minutes long, I think it's the perfect length too. Lyrically, yet again, it keeps up the themes of the album, this time expressing his newfound paranoia with love, resorting to more coping mechanisms like expensive clothing brands, riches, and more substance abuse. It's an amazing song. Used To is an alright track, but I'm not too crazy about this one. It has a mid-tempo, gloomy percussion, chilled guitar riff. It's not as vibey as some of the previous tracks, though. It kind of sits in this awkward gray area of the album. The structure of this one, too, is very skeletal. Juice even admits at the beginning that it's meant to be this kind of freestyle, which definitely explains how thin the song feels. 3 choruses, 2 verses, which is actually just the same verse repeated with a gauche silence. That separates the verse and the chorus that could have easily been cut to smooth out the song. I do like how the lyrics try to paint this idea of moving on from a rough breakup, but the rest of the song doesn't really uphold that, unfortunately. Yeah, not one I'm really wanting to keep around. I'll pass. Karma (skit) is the third and final interlude on this album, continuing the theme of the previous skits where the first one was this girl thrashing him, the second shows that she's starting to move on with another partner, and now this third one shows that the partner did her wrong and now she's calling him back, stating, "Oh, I've always loved you," or whatever, really just on some two-faced BS. I gotta say though, these skits on the album really don't add much aside from a very, very loose cohesion, and I honestly think the album may have been better off without them. Hurt Me is the shortest track on this album by far, just barely over 2 minutes, and my god, it sure feels like it. The bass on this one is another powerful, thunderous, and pounding display assisted by some echoey, glistening synths like gemstones twinkling in a damp cave. Unfortunately, those synths don't really come through much until the last leg of the song, which I think is a missed opportunity to make this track stand out a lot more. Juice's vocals have a much deeper, serious tone to them, like he's confessing about his inner demons, which isn't surprising considering these lyrics about his difficult, forceful relationship with drugs, and how they can't hurt him like this partner did. Pretty good song here, but I think if the mix was tweaked a little bit, this song could have been an unexpected highlight. Black and White is probably one of the poppiest tracks on this album. The synth melody is very upfront in the mix, it's plunky, it's playful, it's pretty delightful having that melody behind the skittering hi-hat and the much less forceful bass. All in all, it's a very sweet instrumental backed up by Juice's more eccentric vocal delivery. He sounds lively, he sounds animated. This is the kind of performance I love to hear Juice do. This high-spirited melodic rap is his most enjoyable and unique quality in my opinion. Lyrically, this song is probably the most typical on the album, just about enjoying doing various addictive drugs with your friends. Honestly, it's simple, I really like it. Long Gone definitely didn't do too much for me at all. Certainly not my least favorite on the album, but this one just didn't work for me. It's kind of the exact opposite of Black and White in that the synths are nice, but this persistent rumbling bass and hi-hat are much heavier on this track. Honestly, this beat is the least offensive thing on the song for me. Juice's vocals have kind of just died down. They're mostly monotone, and I hate how they just stumble over this repetitive chorus, which I did critique on Wasted, how I don't think Juice benefits from repetition, and it really doesn't on this one. The verses have a decent melody, and they do reveal the livelier moments in Juice's vocals, but they're few and far between, and they don't do much to keep the track engaging in the long run. Not for me. Pass. End of the Road is a pretty solid song to begin the closing leg of this album. Not an album standout by any means, but it's still an enjoyable track with the shimmering synths, the keyboard, and the typical bass and hi-hat. Juice has a gripping melody all across this track, which is combined with the slurring of his more drab songs on the album, but I think with how these lyrics are, it makes perfect sense as they're about being at complete rock bottom after this relationship fell apart, describing just how much these emotions are eating at him, and as a result going to pretty drastic extremes in terms of coping with the drugs. This is a good track. And finally, the closer, I'll Be Fine, doesn't really do all that much as a closer. It does kind of just feel like another track on this album, but it's quite a good banger. I love the pummeling bass and the melancholic keys. It makes for some gorgeous trap heat as Juice retains his lively element, which only helps to make this track even more punchy. Especially on the chorus, which is just the right amount of repetitive to be catchy for Juice's style. Lyrically, it's not too much different, just kind of dedicated to drugs and ignoring the consequences that follow, claiming he'll be fine. It's another good track. Overall, now that I've experienced the entire Juice WRLD discography up to this point, I think I can confidently say that the debut is probably his weakest. Not even bad at all, but I think he would grow a lot more on Death Race for Love, and the posthumous Legends Never Die show how versatile he could really be. With this debut album here, he seemed comfortable in his own lane, and a lot of the songs come off as very samey, but there are also a good handful of cuts that have their own defining characteristics, so it doesn't just get jumbled in with a bunch of other copy and paste emo trap albums from this time. Juice really had so much potential displayed even here on this album, and it's a shame to have such a talented artist gone so young. And it's kind of incredible to think where he could have gone if he was still with us today. As for this album though, I think I'm feeling a comfortable 6.5 out of 10 on this album. Well guys, hope you enjoyed that review. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.